Hello everyone, my name is Dan Casella and I'm the president of the Lawrence Township Historical Society here in Cedarville, New Jersey. It is May 5th, 2021. It is the 159th anniversary of the Battle of Williamsburg, which was fought on May 5th, 1862. Some of those that participated in the 2nd New Jersey Brigade were some of Cedarville's own. Those men would enlist in Company H of the 7th New Jersey. We have articles in our Historical Society about how they were in the front rank, about their losses and suffering through that campaign, and some of which I'm going to share with you here. I'm going to highlight the story of Elmer Ogden, whose headstone is with me today, and I'm going to share some of his first-hand accounts, which were published in the West Jersey Pioneer. So yeah, sit down, enjoy. This is going to be a little interesting video. So Elmer Ogden was born 1841 to Martha and David Ogden. He was the only son, according to their 1860 census. He is 19 years old. So when he enlists, he in October 5th of 1858, he will marry a woman named Mary Ann Duffy. I have to verify that, although I'm not entirely sure. But then he enlists September 2nd, 1861, in Company H of the 7th New Jersey Volunteers. They will be part of the 2nd New Jersey Brigade. We have several, like I said, we have several of that men of that company, of that regiment, from Cedarville. Several of them are buried right here in Cedar Hill Cemetery. Cedar Hill Cemetery is up the road. This is the Brick Church Cemetery of the Old Presbyterian Church. Elmer Ogden is named in a letter of Joseph Burt, who's buried just a few feet over here. His headstone was damaged in the 1980s. The Lawrence Township Historical Society has did a fundraiser this year. We raised over $1,700 to restore Joseph Burt's headstone, so that's something to follow along for later. But let's get back here to Elmer. Elmer, like I said, enlists in September of 1861. And at the Battle of Williamsburg, unfortunately, he is killed, and we have several accounts here of what happens to him. In this obituary published in the West Jersey Pioneer, probably shortly after the Battle of May of 1862, this is published: "The Death of Elmer B. Ogden. It is with sorrow that we record the death of Private Elmer B. Ogden, the son of David S. Ogden, Cedarville, a member of Company H, 7th New Jersey Volunteers, who was killed at the Battle of Williamsburg. This estimable young man volunteered last year in the cause for his country, along with a number of his bosom friends from his native town. He was not only exemplary in his habits of life, but a sincere Christian, being a strict member of the Methodist Church. He has fought his last battle, but is a consolation to know that he fell in a great and glorious cause. Whilst in the act of firing, his forehead was pierced with a bullet, causing immediate death. He was buried by his companions in arms on the battlefield, and a headboard marks his resting place. In due time, we hope, he shall be removed and brought home to his relatives and friends." And here he rests in the Presbyterian Church in Cedarville. I have another account written by Benjamin Ogden, who is buried, again, just in the same cemetery just ahead of us. I'm going to let this guy go so I can turn the page. This is the book I'm reading out of is a 1820s ledger, which in the 1980s was turned into a scrapbook, and then you can see has been in some time was written in permanent marker on the front of the book. This book is a screaming endorsement for why historic preservation is so necessary. So here we go. Elmer Ogden will be named in this coming count. A guy by the name of Benjamin F. Ogden, who was his cousin, is going to write shortly after the Battle of Williamsburg. Again, this comes from the West Jersey Pioneer. The article is called Camp Correspondence, which is a running article in the West Jersey Pioneer. In fact, one of the Ogden family members they live in Illinois, and they correspond to this newspaper as well, which I'll get to that on a later date. So here we go. Camp Correspondence, camp of the 7th New Jersey Volunteers, near Cumberland, Virginia, May 18th, 1862. This is written well after the battle. "Dear brother, I suppose you wish to hear something from me in reference to our battle. I shall have it to be brief, for this is a half sheet, is all the paper I have. We lost our knapsacks and everything except we had on our backs. And money is of no use to us here yet, for there is nothing to buy. Only once in a while some sutler gets a barrel of crackers which he sells at 25 cents a pound, and tobacco at $1 a plug. But I must speak of our contest, although it makes me feel sad every time I mention it, for it renews the recollection that one of our numbers still lies beneath the battleground. Oh, how we miss him! When the battle commenced, 6 of us Cedarville boys stood side by side in the front rank. At night, 1 lay dead on the field and 2 in the hospital wounded. 3 came out without a scratch, although I had 3 bullet holes through my overcoat cape. I did not know that poor Elmer had fallen, or that Lorenzo Painter and Albert Bateman were wounded until night. One don't notice much that takes place around him in such a time as that. After the battle was over, I began to inquire where our boys were, for I had not seen any of them except Joseph Burt. He told me that Elmer B. Ogden was killed, for he saw him fall, and that Albert Bateman was wounded before he fired a gun, and Lorenzo Painter also slightly wounded. This was sad news to hear. Sleep was impossible, for we were wet to the skin. We had nothing to eat but a few hard crackers. How I longed for a hot cup of coffee, but owning the badness of the roads and the teams could not get up to us, so I ate what little I had. I drank some hot water and felt very thankful that it was all with me. We built a large fire, sat by it till morning, when General Hooker, God bless him, sent men on horseback to fetch. Pardon me, I lost my line. General Hooker, God bless him, on horseback to fetch something to eat as soon as possible. About 10 o'clock, they came up with bags of crackers and salt beef slung across the backs of horses, and also some coffee. You can't begin to know the joy of us half-starved soldiers, for I don't suppose you've ever had the trial, and God grant you may never have. I was so glad to get a piece of raw salt beef that I sat down and cried for joy. Perhaps you may think that it was so foolish, but even our major shed tears to see the men tear into raw beef with a good relish. After we had spent the previous day, there I saw a sad sight I shall never forget. Many of the wounded were still lying on the field, uttering cries that would startle the stoutest heart. The captain said we would bury Elmer where he fell. Sergeant Stiles and myself dug the grave and buried him. This was hard to do. The rebels had taken everything out of his pockets and even the rings off his fingers. The only thing they left was a pair of gloves, which I sent to his mother. General Hooker says we were whipped 3 times but didn't know it. He says we are not soldiers but bulldogs. We do not stay in one place long, but keep closing up towards Richmond. The report is the rebels have made a stand on towards Richmond, and it is my duty to be in another contest. I am ready, but I have no wish to see any more battles. I could tell you much more if I had paper. We expect to move tomorrow morning. I still remain your brother, Benjamin F. Ogden. And that's it on the Ogden story. Benjamin Ogden, oddly enough, has the name captain, or the title captain, on his headstone, although in his military service he never rises above the rank of private. He also has a cool 3rd Corps badge on his headstone as well. If you ever want to come and visit it, he's here as well. There is a photograph of Elmer Ogden, Joseph Burt, Benjamin Ogden, Lorenzo Painter, and another man named Joseph Diver. It's in a book called The Historic Days of Cumberland County. There's all the 5 of them all seated together. They're all wearing overcoats and forage caps. It's a really cool photograph. If you want to check it out, I highly recommend you go check that out. All right, that's it for me. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the stories. Again, this is the 159th anniversary of the Battle of Williamsburg. I think it's one of the coolest battles there is in the war. It sets up a lot of major players. A lot of Confederate generals are involved in this battle. Of course, William Hancock. Phil Kearny comes up the road and saves the day later on. But yeah, that's it. Thank you again for watching, and like, share, subscribe if you feel so courteous. That would be awesome. Cheers, everybody. Take care.